the launching of this campaign to fill and invest in water. It gives us the occasion after the 9th World Forum held, and to bring this matter, which is vital to the heart of the international agenda. I'd like to pay tribute to the resolution of September 2023, through which the General Assembly decides to particularly convene in 2026 an international conference on water and sanitation to accelerate the SDG number 6. We'd like to welcome President Kikwete here. As regards Africa, I'd like to say that we are still far from the achievement. 750 million, those with no access to potable water, 320 of that number globally live in Africa. Even if these numbers differ according to countries, it clearly illustrates the need and the urgent needs to mobilize to fill this gap, which is why the projections have indicated that Africa will not achieve the 2030 agenda, the SDGs linked to water and sanitation. This will impact negatively other sectors that are very vital, such as health, education, and food, which is why we need to mobilize ourselves together to ensure that we could reverse this tendency and to set up the panel of high level for investment in water in Africa, and indeed the partnership for investment in water in Africa.
Africa stands at a crossroad in its development journey. The African Investment Programme, AIP, estimates a staggering annual funding gap of $30 billion in the water and sanitation sector. As underlined at the Africa Climate Summit, while the continent suffers grave impacts of the climate crisis, it also has a land seeking a new lens of opportunity for the booming 1 billion people eager for change. To activate the shift, the continent must create an enabling environment to mobilize domestic and international investments to meet the region's ambitious vision of the $13 billion per year by 2030. This will require a combination of measures to strengthen the institutional regulation for water investments and value-efficient water use across sectors and industries. International cooperation and the engagement of the IFIs will also be fundamental to de-risk water investments and leverage larger funding streams. Last March, we gathered at the United Nations for the 2023 UN Water Conference. The conference resulted in more than 800 commitments inscribed under the Water Action Agenda from member states, the UN system, civil society, the private sector, and many more. As we gather at this launch, let us amplify the awareness raised at the 2023 Water Conference and persist in our unwavering commitment to enact real transformative change to achieve SDG 6 and other water-related goals. The timing is opportune as we head into the SDG Summit, the Climate Ambition Summit, and the high-level dialogue on finance for development this week. Let us, with political leadership, shared commitment and determination, contribute to universal access to water and sanitation in the African continent to ensure a brighter future for everyone. Thank you, and I wish you all a successful launch of the campaign.
It is a pleasure and honor for me to be associated with the historic event of the launch of the international high-level campaign, Mind the Gap, Invest in Water, taking place on the sidelines of the 70th session of the UN General Assembly and the 2023 Sustainable Development Goals Summit. Well, I do so in my capacity as the alternate co-chair of the panel under the leadership, very able leadership of His Excellency Macky Sall, President of the Republic of Senegal, His Excellency Hak Genko, President of the Republic of Namibia, and His Excellency Mark Rutte, Prime Minister of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. As you are aware, in March this year, during a UN Water Conference, the high-level panel launched its first report. The report shows that it is possible to achieve water security and sustainable sanitation for all by 2030. Indeed, it is stated in the report that we can achieve this if we are able to secure an additional $30 billion annually by 2030 to close the financing gap for water investments in Africa. It is stated in the report that it is possible to raise that money if there is resolute commitment to seeing implementation of the panel's recommendations. In this regard, the report spells out the following three pathways. 1, achieve more impactful water spending and financial leverage. 2, mobilize domestic resources. And 3, secure global and continental investments and finance. Ladies and gentlemen, the report provides a step-by-step action plan on how we can do this. It also includes a pyramid of water investment transformation with 9 sources of finance and proposes targets for each of the 9 sources. But we need action from all key stakeholders. This is why today we are witnessing the launch of the high-level panel campaign codenamed Mind the Gap and Invest in Water. The goal of the campaign is to mobilize at least $30 billion annually, as the Chair has already said. Commitments and resources mobilized will contribute to implementation of the Africa Water Investment Program and assist governments to develop and implement climate-resilient national water investment programs. The campaign will run from September 2023 this year up to 2030 and will convene an international Africa Water Investment Summit at the end of the year 1 to take stock of the progress. In addition to the need to close the financing gap by 2030, the campaign will also draw attention to the need to address deficits in water governance, capacity building, and data availability in Africa. The governance, capacity, and data deficits are some of the key reasons why water projects are not a priority for funders and investors.
Your Excellencies, we face a climate change crisis. The effects are now clearly visible: droughts and floods, increased intensity, out-of-season storms, glacier melting, rising ocean levels, all those we know. But what is understated is the fact that these threats are indeed existential. They threaten life itself. It is not just a change of weather. And secondly, these climatic changes are all having direct effect on the water cycle, making secure water supply more difficult, more expensive, and often out of reach for developing countries. It has a great negative impact on food security, on biodiversity, indeed on human well-being and our chances to develop. In Namibia, the driest sub-Saharan country, these effects are now reaching severe states. Your Excellencies, we also face a financial crisis with significant and perpetual shortfalls in funding to address climate change and the related water cycle aspects. The gap. And while at the same time, excessive debt burdens carry existential risks for developing countries, access to funding becomes more restrictive and expensive for countries classified as middle-income countries. The proposed step through the API to raise financial resources to close the gap is indeed pivotal. But I'm sad to say that it is by no means the silver bullet solving everything. We are facing a global crisis which requires global solutions, including the financial needs for the water sector agenda. If progress is to be made, we must also review the global financial architecture and step up its ability to invest in water.
We have now reached a stage whereby the African Union Commission, in collaboration with the International High-Level Panel, is embarking on Water Investment Action Plan, through which member states are identifying priorities areas for investment in the water sector. Water insecurity is a formidable obstacle to Africa's industrialization and overall development, as we need water for all the sectors to function. It is for this reason that today we are launching the campaign that will contribute immensely towards mobilization of investment required for resilient water security and sustainable sanitation in Africa. This move resonates well with the outcome of our recent African Climate Summit held just about 2 weeks ago in Nairobi, Kenya, from the 4th to 6th September 2023, where all the decisions that we took is really embedded in the Nairobi Declaration. In fact, it is part of the implementation of the Nairobi Leaders Declaration and call for action and climate change.
Our grounding report, Africa's Rising Investment Tide, unveiled at the UN Water Conference, presented actionable pathways to mobilizing finance. The first one is achieve more impactful spending. The second one is mutual accountability of resources, and this has been, underscored by His Excellency, the former President of Tanzania. And 3, to unlock financing from targeted domestic, continental, and global sources. Our NEPAD stands ready, at the vanguard, committed to turning these plans into a reality.
Excellencies, as part of the Continental Africa Water Investment Program, in March of 2023, Tanzania committed to implement the initiative by designing the Tanzania Water Investment Program. We call it in short TANWIN, and which will be implemented between next year, 2024, and 2030. And the Tanzania Water Investment Program aims to ensure national water security, climate change resilience, and access to adequate water. The program, which has 4 main components, will require a total of $15.2 billion for its implementation as follows. First, we'll have the water investment for social well-being, which we estimate will cost us $6.47 billion. The second is a water investment for sustainable development, US dollars $7.14 billion. Investment for strengthening water governance and institutions, $0.54 billion. And fourth is water investment for climate change resilience and disaster management, which we estimate will cost $0.54 billion. And coordination and monitoring will require an extra $0.3 billion. Excellencies, successful implementation of the program, as well as monitoring and evaluation, calls for collaboration and participation of various stakeholders, including public sector players, development partners, the private sector, local banks, CSOs, as well as research and academic institutions. And in that regard, the government of Tanzania commits to direct domestic resources up to 43% of the total budget, which is $6.45 billion, essentially to cater for strengthening of water governance and institutions, as well as investment for climate resilience. And we call upon the international community to partner with us to mobilize the remaining 57%, which is $5.56 billion of the budget, in order to close the investment gap.
The Department of Water and Sanitation has been allocated, in South Africa, has been allocated 22.257 billion South African rands to the current financial year by National Treasury, and the implementation of projects is a challenge which we are working hard to overcome, as funds are not fully utilized in some cases. We welcome the focus on the campaign, Mind the Gap, Invest in Water, not only on finance, but also on governance, on capacity and improving data for decision making. We will contribute fully to the campaign, as that will assist us to address the challenges we face. Key challenges in South Africa's water sector include high rates of non-revenue water due to system losses from aging distribution infrastructure and water quality concerns. As a demonstration of national commitment and leadership, we've established the Water Partnerships Office, hosted by the Development Bank of Southern Africa, to facilitate private investment in water industry. The Water Partnership Office will initially focus on 6 priority areas, including limiting water wastage, water reuse, wastewater treatment, water management contracts, seawater desal, and sanitation without the use of sewers. The plan is to build a pipeline of bankable projects to offer the private investors. We've entered into PPPs with 3 mining houses on projects amounting to over 40 billion rand.
Botswana is developing a water investment program which is estimated as $10.8 billion US. For the past 3 years, the government of Botswana has allocated the largest share of the national development budget, which currently stands at 29% of the total budget, to water and sanitation sector. This has increased access to water to 98% at national level. The Water Changemakers Awards recognize innovations aimed at improving water and sanitation management. On March 22nd, during the launch of the International High-Level Panel Report on Water Investments in Africa at the UN Water Conference, the Chair, His Excellency Dr. Mokgweetsi Eric Yabezu Masisi, President of Botswana, presented the Presidential Global Water Changemakers Award to 6 current and former heads of state for their demonstrated leadership and commitment towards climate-resilient water security. The Water Changemakers Innovation Awards 2023 were then officially launched during the official kickoff of the largest gathering of water in Asia, the International Asian Water Week in Songsan, South Korea, on the 6th of July, 2023. The keynote address was delivered by Ban Ki-moon, the 8th Secretary General of the UN. It is pleasing to note that the Water Changemakers Innovation Awards 2023 applications were opened on the 6th of July to the 31st of August 2023, and they have received over 300 applications from individuals, organizations, and enterprises. It is now my pleasure to announce that the Changemakers jury, consisting of renowned experts in the field, have now selected the top 30 finalists from over 300 applications based on their potential for long-lasting impact, innovation, and scalability. The top 30 finalists represent a diverse range of water-related initiatives, ranging from clean water access, improving quality and efficiency, and conservation efforts to cutting-edge technologies. These projects embody the spirit of innovation and dedication necessary to address the global water crisis. These finalists will now proceed to the next round of evaluation, where they will have the opportunity to showcase their initiatives in more detail and compete for the coveted spot amongst 3 winners, whom will be announced during the COP28 in Dubai, United Arab Emirates, in December 2023.
We, as the government of Finland, commend the efforts of the Mind the Gap, Invest in Water campaign to raise awareness on climate-resilient water security and sustainable sanitation in Africa.
We made a commitment as a government to support WASH activities because of the fact that it's a cross-cutting issue that impacts on a lot of areas that have been already talked about: health, education, agriculture, which is the flagship of His Excellency's government. As a country coming up where we've had a lot of war and we had our infrastructure destroyed, but we are now at a place of development where most of our partnerships have been very supportive. So we continue to look forward to bilateral partnerships in strengthening the sector, which is new. We want to build infrastructure, we want to build capacities, we want to invest, we want to have private partnership investment in water and sanitation. So this is a very good platform for us.
The panel that just finished made reference to the UN 2023 Water Conference, which has increased our ambition and the momentum required. We are now working toward a UN-wide, system-wide strategy which will elevate and transform the SDG 6 Global Acceleration Framework that we launched in 2020. Through this effort, we will ensure effective coordination at the country level with a focus on innovation, governance, data, and capacity. Just as we should move toward water efficiency and use every drop, we must ensure every dollar is leveraged to its full potential. I'm very, very much honored to on behalf of UN Water, to join the campaign so that to invest in water for Africa.
We've heard this morning quite a bit how off track we are in Africa to meet the SDGs. And we've seen how these conditions have been exacerbated because of climate. The economic consequences are dire. World Bank diagnostics show that by 2050, water scarcity could reduce GDP by 6%. So business as usual is not an option. Systems change is needed. The World Bank is working closely with African ministers of water and finance to catalyze change. We'll have such an event in November in Addis.
Thank you to the African Union Commission and the co-chairs of the high-level panel for bringing us together to launch this critical campaign. You can count on UNICEF as a founding member of the panel to strongly support the collective effort to close the water investment gap in Africa.
We must deploy more innovative and impactful mechanisms for commercial and private financing in water and sanitation to improve quality of life for the people of Africa. As one of the largest financiers in the sector in Africa, the bank is stepping up our efforts, and we welcome the Mind the Gap, Invest in Water campaign. We call upon our partner governments, donor countries, non-governmental organizations, and other financing institutions to collaborate and invest in water.
UNDP remains committed to safeguarding critical water resources and access to water for the most vulnerable. We are committed to working with partners in the AIP umbrella to achieve the goal of closing the finance gap in water investment, building upon lessons and best practices from our work with all the countries.
As we launch this particular campaign here today, we also want to continue to focus on the support that as the DBSI will offer, particularly around project preparation funds that are particularly available to de-risk the projects and also enhancing affordability as well as ensuring that the projects are bankable. We further also want to demonstrate our commitment through our infrastructure fund that we particularly have put in place in the DBSA to crowd in private sector partnerships, and also making sure that the participation of the private sector is enhanced in that particular respect. We further again want to demonstrate that we have supported the national water investment programs of the various countries, being Zambia, being Zanzibar, and that particularly gives us a perspective in terms of what the pipeline we could really be in a position to enhance as the Development Bank of Southern Africa.
Water is much more than a technical issue of international cooperation. It's a vital existential imperative for humanity, and we must remember the value of this blue gold, and we at UNESCO are committed, together with you all, to keeping the well full.
I think a clear message, your Commissioner, is African governments are indeed raising ambition. We had Botswana, Tanzania, 6.4 billion that they plan to mobilize from their treasury, from the domestic resources for the next 8 years. We had $1 billion from South Africa, which is about 22.2 billion rands, also coming from their treasury. Significant domestic resources, and I think that's really key in moving the work of the high-level panel forward.